Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Nessler. Hope everybody's staying healthy, staying well. We got a good episode for you today. We're joined by Dale Spangler from Tucker Powersports, and we're talking about content marketing, something that Dale is an expert and done a remarkable job with Tucker's online presence, be it their blog or their bike build video content or their Instagram, and just really keeping things interesting, intriguing, and on brand, and how they've used that to not only stay relevant but further grow the Tucker brand. So we're talking about that today. Before we get into it, I know there are a lot of businesses that are, it is what it is, they're struggling right now. So I wanted to bring just a couple of things that I thought might be helpful to you, because there are some options that are being put in place to help relieve some of the headache and the fear and the burden that we have. So obviously the stimulus bill that has been placed gives businesses like us the option to take advantage of some financial support, and something that, as of recording this intro, it is Wednesday, April 1st. By Friday, the banks are supposed to have information on the PPP program, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. So it's a loan that you can apply for. Obviously, consult with your accountant, with any advisors you have in the financial realm of things in your business. I'm just trying to make sure that you're aware of some things that are available, but these loans are supposed to be completely forgivable. So make sure you're staying on top of it. I was surprised how many of our clients did not take advantage of a $10,000 advance that you were able to get. I believe they hit the million business limit. 1 million businesses had already applied, so I don't know if you can still get that. But if you have any questions about this, or some things that some of our clients have applied for that we've helped them leverage, feel free to shoot me an email at questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. I know several of you are doing fine. Several of you are struggling, and anything that I can bring to the table to maybe help as far as some relief programs that are being put in place for businesses like us, I want to do it. So the big thing I wanted to tell you about today, and it's from the SBA, is the PPP program. It's the Paycheck Protection Program, and you'll be able to apply for that. There's a sample application form on the internet right now on SBA.gov. If you just Google PPP program, the sample application will come up. The banks are supposed to have information on how you can apply, what you need to get them by Friday. I'd say Friday morning, Friday afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. So hopefully that's helpful. Let's get into the show. Good conversation with Dale Spangler from Tucker Powersports, and I appreciate you guys listening. You have questions, you can always hit me up on Instagram and ask those questions. It's at Luke Nessler, LukeNesler, or you can send me an email, questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. I appreciate you all. Stay safe. We'll be back at the races here soon. We'll be out ripping on the motos here soon. We'll be back to normal life here soon. Gotta stay hopeful. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by RacerX, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world, so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by RacerX, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by RacerX.
All right, as promised, welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. My guest today is Dale Spangler from Tucker Powersports. I'm excited to have him on. He's a content guy. We've got a lot of the similar roots as far as our marketing background. And to top it all off, it's an awesome brand. So, man, I appreciate you joining us on the show today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you having me on the show. You guys are doing really cool things with these podcasts. bringing some attention to the power sports marketing. So yeah, it's an honor to be on the show. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Well, let's talk a little bit about your background first before we dive into what you guys are doing at Tucker to really push the envelope, stay relevant in the sport from a marketing perspective. Talk to me about your background. One of the first things you'd mentioned was you're very much a creative and a content guy, and I found that interesting.
Yeah. So my experience, I've kind of I guess you could say I'm an industry lifer. I've in my 27th year of being in the power sports industry, primarily marketing. Strangely enough, way back when I started, I began as a computer draftsman for Cometic Gasket. That was my first industry job up in Ohio. That's where I grew up. And from there, I just always had interest in marketing. And through the years, I've kind of worked my way through some different companies, learning along the way. One of them being Alpine Stars over in Italy, where I learned some media relations. And then from there, I went to college in the mid 2000s. I always wanted to get a college degree. So I went to Boise State University and got a degree in English. And so that kind of combined with my marketing experience, real world marketing experience, though I don't have a marketing degree, I do have an English degree, and they kind of fit together perfect for doing content marketing. And so, yeah, I do a lot of PR, creating blogs, Q&As with brands and other industry people, just trying to keep the content flowing at Tucker Powersports and have it be our own. We're kind of running it as if we're our own media brand.
Right.
Just trying to get everything out there we can about the brands we carry, the lifestyle, the culture of Tucker. And yeah, it's fun. I love it. I feel like I'm in my element.
Yeah, that obviously makes the job much easier and allows you to create better content if it's something that you enjoy. You'd mentioned something that I think more companies need to have a similar mindset as you guys. You said we treat it as if we're a media company to promote the brands, and that's really what everybody should be doing. I mean, I'm sitting in a studio at our office that is really for us. We have a 1,000 square foot media studio at Impakt, and yes, our clients will use it from time to time, but this is built for us. If we don't create content and showcase who you're working with, our brand, what we do, we're irrelevant. And I feel like so many companies drop the ball there to where, especially today, to where the social media platforms, they are our MTV, CNN, NBC of 2020. We get to determine what content we're going to put out. We don't have to get it onto a big network, yet brands don't have that same mindset that you just said, where they don't treat it like they're a media company. They're a gear company, or they're a supplement company, or they're a clothing company, but they don't create media. Is that something that Tucker from the top down has just had that mindset they've gotten, or is that something that took a little bit of poking and prodding to get them to understand that, man, we've got to tell we've got to have a narrative, we've got to have a storyline, we've got to have a brand that people can attach themselves to, we've got to create this content? Or was that originally there when you came to the company?
Actually, I think they were doing it somewhat, but not really to the same level that we're doing it now. I've been with the company, May will be 2 years now with Tucker Powersports. And, from the start, we talked a lot about taking that content marketing approach where we're creating our own, basically organic content, ourselves, and not relying so much on the media. We've all seen how the powersports media keeps shrinking. Well, I'm sure other industries as well. It just seems like it's getting harder and harder for brands to get media coverage because it's just, they're all short staffed like a lot of businesses are. And so really it's, we talked about it a lot, and we're like, we really need to get this, our own content out there, our owned media, to where, what happens if social media goes away, or it costs, to actually be able to post? Well, it already is costing, as we're seeing, because you pretty much have to sponsor posts on social media to really, really have effective engagement. But for us, yeah, we just consciously kind of committed to this, and we're starting to see kind of the fruits of our efforts. It's taken pretty much the full 2 years for people to start to realize that, hey, there's a lot of great content on the Tucker website and the Tucker blog specifically. And, yeah, I mean, we're just making a conscious effort. Consumers these days are savvy. You know, they see through the hard sell of the olden days. You know, like they don't want to be sold to so much as they want to be able to buy into the brand's identity, what they stand for. They're drawn to that more so emotional decisions as opposed to sell. They see through that stuff. And so, yeah, the higher ups in Tucker have seemed to have really embraced this approach, and they're behind us and support what we're doing. And so, yeah, it's like I said, it's been a lot of fun, you know, to be behind this effort and kind of see that our website traffic's going up and more people are landing on these pieces of content that we've created, because they're, you know, in a lot of cases they'll be hopefully something that's evergreen and stays out on the internet for years, and it's still relevant.
Yeah.
And so it's been, like I said, a lot of fun.
What is your biggest or most successful channel as far as consumer feedback or engagement? The blog is super impressive, but you guys also have a really strong Instagram presence. So what's kind of the 1 and 2 as far as the top content platform that you guys refer to?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, you know, Facebook and Instagram, you know, kind of the big 2 there, if you want to call them that. But I mean, between those 2, and we definitely target things very specifically between the 2. Facebook is much better obviously for sending people to our blog. And so being able to put, you know, a piece of content up and it's sending them directly to the Tucker blog, whereas Instagram just seems so much better for just brand building, awareness, building that, you know, it's being able to share what our culture is about. It's obviously a little bit, you know, younger demographic as well. It's just more subliminal, I guess. And so those are the 2 that we definitely focus on the most. However, I will say LinkedIn has been another one that we've been pretty successful with on just really getting good response. It seems to be kind of everything I've read about, people are making statements, you know, Gary Vee, probably one of them, that, you know, LinkedIn is kind of a hot place to be right now, because it's almost like Facebook was, you know, 3 to 5 years ago, where you put a piece of content on there, it pretty much will get seen by anybody who's following you. And so it's not choked down by, say, a Facebook algorithm or Instagram. So between those 3, we've done pretty well. And then we have our own internal email distribution that goes to our dealers. And so we're able to also share that blog content and keep the content flowing on a weekly and daily basis.
What type of content does the best for you guys? Meaning, you know, is it imagery on Instagram? Is it your video series? Do you guys have any audio based content, or do you really use the written word, or do you guys have just really a mixture of everything that you're pushing out at all times?
Very much a mixture. And I've noticed that when we kind of start to, you know, put a little too much into one particular area, you know, between video, blog content, and photos, I mean, we pretty much have that covered. We have a really good team of a group of us that go to field events. One of them's our creative director, Jacob Vaughn. He's a photographer. Our videographer, Carter York, amazing videographer. And then I do the blog writing. So between the 3 of us, we just kind of have a perfect, you know, kind of I don't know. We just work really well together, and between all of that, we're able to kind of churn out content in all 3 of those areas. And I'm trying to consciously mix it up. Sometimes if you do a little too much in one area, it tends to get stale and maybe not respond as well. You know, things like video on Facebook, uploading the video directly to Facebook. Sometimes occasionally I'll put the YouTube link, but a lot of times I'll give them the content just because it seems to respond better when you give them content, you stay on their platform. And so, I would say, to answer your original question, it's definitely a good mix of video, photo, and written word.
Yeah, I think it's important that, you've got to have a mixture of everything today, because I think maybe the biggest reason is not everybody likes reading blog posts. I'll be honest, I'm that guy. I'm not somebody that my attention span is so all over the place. I'm not going to sit there and just read blog after blog, but if you put a really interesting video in front of me that talks about the same product line, I'm going to watch it. And now, obviously, podcasting is such a massive component. I'm listening to the podcast on my drive. When I'm doing laundry at home, I got my headphones in, I'm listening to the podcasts. Have you guys dabbled in that from either a sponsorship perspective, sponsoring some of the big podcasts that are out there? Do you have your own original audio-based content that you guys put out, or is it kind of an untapped market that you guys haven't touched yet?
Yeah, it's at the moment it's untapped. We're just like many companies. If we had more bodies, in the department, we probably would be able to expand into the podcast section, because I completely agree with you. There's so many different facets of being able to receive content these days, whether it is written word. Some people do like, reading long blogs. Others don't. Others want to watch a video. Others want to listen to a podcast. And so having all that fourth element there is I feel like that's something that we definitely aspire to down the road. What that topic will be, probably be a mix of product and, event coverage. And I will say just to kind of give you a little background on like the blogs that we tend to create, especially if it's an event coverage and it's something long, I consciously always try and put a lot of photos in too, because that seems to really help break up instead of just paragraphs of text. That's just sort of a content marketing technical writer aspect, things that I learned in college is, chunking things up so they're easily digestible by the reader. And so even if it is long form, it will, in a lot of cases, be very photo driven as well. And so it's very visual.
How do you guys measure the success from an ROI standpoint of the content that you're putting out there? Is it something that you guys have it down to a science internally to where you look at it as, this piece of content drove X amount of traffic, X amount of revenue? Are you a brand that understands the value of just visibility and that does translate to sales? It's just not always trackable? Because I know different brands, different businesses look at it differently, care about different things. Some of the clients that we work with, they care only about, I spent $1, I made $3. Others look at it from a awareness and visibility perspective, return on exposure rather than return on investment. What's your guys' approach to that?
Well, with us being a distributor, it kind of does confuse the matter. Instead of being, consumer direct, with us selling to dealers, that obviously complicates the issue, because even when we put a piece of content out there, I have to always be conscious of the fact that it's going to be read by our direct dealer audience and consumers. And so it kind of has to be this piece of content that overlaps both, that is informative to both. And so, we do track. We have like monthly meetings, and we go over just how everything's performing and see where, we'll talk about a piece of content that did really well, or maybe it didn't do well. And we go, why do you think this happened? Was it the time we posted it? We try and kind of dissect some things and figure out what, why a piece of content reacted that it did. And then beyond that, we actually, on our email side of things, we have a really, really great group in our email department that is able to actually put dollar values on, email opens and link click-throughs. And I guess evidently they're able to track, via cookies and be able to put some dollar value on it. So, yeah, we definitely, we're definitely not just throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping it sticks. We're trying to be methodical about it. Obviously, being in the business, it's not easy to keep up with it, especially when you're doing other marketing tasks. It's a very focused, there's a lot to learn and keep up with, whether it's social media, analytics, all the above. So it's a lot sometimes.
So what are some ways that you guys, what are some marketing platforms outside of just your own internal content development that you guys are doing that you guys rely on, be it, podcasts or RacerX digital, RacerX's online presence, RacerX's print, event activation, targeted social, search marketing? What are some things that you guys rely on as a brand that you've seen that has worked? And then more importantly, honestly, something I'm interested in, things that didn't work. Is there anything that you guys have done over the years that stand out?
Yeah, I mean, we do a pretty good mix of, with us having a sales force in the field all over the country, we're able to work, in conjunction with our sales reps at various field events. And so we'll do activations at those events. Like, for example, we work with the EBR team this last weekend for the Dallas Supercross. So we had, brought a bunch of our employees in there, and then we had invited dealers that were able to come in and hang out in the EBR tent and get a free meal and just learn more about the products. On top of that, I mean, yeah, we definitely do a lot of, targeted social. Like, if we have something we really want to push, we'll do an ad spend on, boosting posts. Like, if it's something, a new brand that we've taken on that we're now distributing, or like a hot new product, like the Pro Taper Senna pull shot device, something like that we know is going to be a huge hit. We'll put some money on boosting that and targeting primarily our dealer audience, but we also want consumers to see it as well, because hopefully they'll walk into their local dealership and have a part number that's a Tucker part number, and they'll want to order it. So that's definitely some of our strategy. As far as things not working, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I know at one point we had, I think we actually still have it, but we had a Tucker semi, and that just got to the point where we're like, this thing is so big and it's hard to get to different events. It obviously costs a lot. Really could do the same thing in some vans. So we're in the process of probably going to transition over to some cargo vans. So we're just a little bit more, I guess, efficient when we're at these different field events. And yeah.
Do you guys have any involvement or strategy revolving around influencers, be it riders or folks like Jeff Walker that are pros, folks like Dio that are not pros but have large online followings? Do you do any types of content creation partnership with those folks, or people that do bike builds, anything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've really started to kind of branch off more into the bike build. In fact, we had a builder out of named Dan Riley from Gun Design out of Minneapolis area in Minnesota, and he reached out to us last fall and said, "Hey, can we work together on a project?" And so we started brainstorming, and then we came up with this idea. He had a Yamaha XS 650 that he had purchased really cheap off of Craigslist, and he's like, "How about we build like a Tucker bike?" And so we started with the idea of, kind of an every man's build, every woman's build, if you want to be politically correct there, but just a bike that was built using bolt-on parts for the most part. He did a little bit of fabrication, but so we started working together on that, and the goal was the Tucker show, which was in the end of January. And so, yeah, that was our feature bike, and it was a big hit. And we're going to be giving that bike away to a dealer here in May after it does the bike show circuit. It's already been to the one show in Portland, and then it's going to Mama Tried in March, Hand Built in April, and then the new Meta show in May in Denver. So then we'll give the bike away after that. So yeah, we started doing that. We definitely have some influencers like Stephanie Peets, who's a awesome rider, works on her own bikes. She's a model. So we're kind of dispersed in all the areas. We have some UTV people, we have some moto people like Scotty Champion, who's in the DFW area. He's a national pro, but kind of a local hero in that area. So we help people like that. But yeah, I mean, influencers, I'd say we probably have maybe 5 to 10 at the most. But yeah, we're just kind of easing into that. It's obviously changing that landscape as well. The expectations for what what you want in return from an influencer. I mean, that's kind of the big thing, is figuring out what your goals are with these influencers. With Stephanie Peets, it's been really good. She's we've done some interviews with her. She's gone to the Colin Edwards boot camp, and we did a blog on that. And she came to our Tucker show, and so it's been a really good working relationship. And she's just a really down to earth, great representative of Powersports for women.
Yeah, it's nice when you can find somebody that understands the content creation aspect of it, but then also has an engaged audience base, and it doesn't take hundreds of influencers to make it happen. If you've got 3, 4, 5 that have really engaged audiences, and those audiences don't have to be massive. If they've got 10 to 20,000, but they're engaged, it's far better than an Instagram model that likes to let it all hang out on Instagram. They got 500,000 followers, but they're not going to buy anything. I think that is an area that it's a bubble that's going to burst as a whole, and inside and outside of the moto space. The influencer bubble will burst, but it doesn't mean that model will go away. It's just those that are actually skilled and talented at what they do with building an audience that's engaged will be the ones that remained, and those that simply just had followers there to look but not buy won't necessarily be able to monetize off of it. I think another aspect that I look at that's almost the same, if not identical, to influencers are the same way that teams are approaching brands like you all, and selling their value to you. I think that needs to be looked at differently, similar to how you would look at an influencer. I'm perplexed how brands will spend the money they spend or give the amount of product they give just to simply have a tiny little microscopic logo on the back fender, never be featured in any content, never be mentioned. I think that model is broken as well, and the teams are left, well, man, we need sponsors. Why aren't we getting sponsors? Well, what value are you bringing to a brand? How are you showcasing it? And I'm specifically going to refer to SGB Racing this year with, they got Alex Ray, they got AJ Catanzaro. Both are doing a really good job of consistent, influential content online. I think that is a model that certain teams could tap into further, encourage their riders to do this, and a lot of them are. I mean, even amateurs. Carson Mumford put his first vlog out this week. That should be, and I think is going to have to be, an aspect and a component of these teams' value proposition to a brand, and how much exposure we can get on the track and now off the track. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree that model is, like with between the teams and the sponsors is kind of somewhat broken. I just think that there's just not enough, there just wasn't enough return on the investment for a lot of these brands. Like I think they pay a lot of money. Like you said, in a lot of cases they get a logo maybe on the bike and maybe on the jersey if they're lucky. And that
logo's not moving the product that they'd hope, because it's one and done if they get on the podium or get on TV. But you look at SGB Racing, they didn't even make the night show last week, maybe the last 2 weeks, because A-Ray's been hurt, but they're getting more exposure for some of their sponsors than some of these top teams, and I just find that super interesting.
Yeah, I think they get it, and I see a lot of these young kids coming up that have a huge following. Like you mentioned, Carson Mumford. I mean, I feel like they're growing up with this social media era. They're a little more savvy on that. They realize how important it is that they need to give a return on the investment and build a personality around themselves. I think that's a huge part of it. When you look at, you're saying like the team with Alex Ray, like I think of Adam Enticknap too. I mean, the guy's, he's struggled, but he still has value because he does a lot for his sponsors. He's just a good representative. Outside of riding the motorcycle, he does a lot. And
I think that's the only reason he still has the career that he has, is because and people will say he's an anomaly, but he's not. Yeah, he's got a personality that can't necessarily be replicated. But I mean, in my opinion, for what it's worth, I don't think he'd have a ride if it weren't for him having this 7 deuce deuce persona, and he built that himself just as much as Eli Tomac has built the skill set that he has. So I think that it's something that, one, it's going to give riders more opportunity, but two, if a team really knows how. So I mean, look at JGR. If and they're in a very weird spot, but if Troll Train did what he's doing now and created the Troll Train vlog a year ago, 2 years ago, that can be a selling point to the sponsors. And whether it puts them in a better spot than they are now, who knows? I think without a doubt it does over time. It's just a matter of, is it too late? So is that something that you guys would see value in if there's a team that is doing okay or even really good, but has a really strong behind the scenes presence, the same way Reality of Speed did however many years ago, doing that today on a social media landscape?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Like, I feel like in this day and age, you have to look at the whole package. It can't be just results. I mean, you can have the best rider out there, but if they have no personality, or they're kind of hidden from view, that just doesn't really help from a sponsor's perspective and the sport in general. Let's face it, we all want to keep our jobs in this industry, and it's in our best interest to help build up the sport and add personality to the sport and interest. And so to me, that's where, again, it goes back to like a guy like, the 7 Deuce Deuce. I feel like he's brand savvy. He might not be having getting the results. It's unfortunate that our industry sometimes is kind of fickle that way. You're only as good as your results, the old saying is. But I just feel like that's not really the case anymore. Like, you have to have the whole package. Like Jet Lawrence, another example. Like, I feel like that kid is just a phenom in more ways than one. Like, he's good on camera. He's funny when he gets interviewed on the podium, whatever. I mean, he just seems like he's a well-rounded package and super marketable. Marketing person's dream, in my, as far as my opinion is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what are one or two things that you guys are focused on in 2020? As of recording this podcast, we're going into March, so it's still early in the year. What are some things that you didn't implement last year, or maybe you did, but that you're looking to improve this year? Is there anything that you guys have on your plate?
Yeah, I mean, from a content perspective, like I'm being the sole blogger / writer at the moment, copywriter. We're looking to, add to our team, going forward here in the next couple of months. And hopefully that's just going to open up our, content stream even more, because I have aspirations to really get some evergreen content out there, like more subject focused, things like how to maintain your battery, how to get ready for spring riding, things that are actually useful for people when they're just learning about power sports. So if there happens to be, someone doesn't understand how to keep their battery maintained over when they're storing their bike in the wintertime, hopefully they'll land on a piece of content that we've created that happens to mention our products in it. And so, we're just going to keep ramping up the content and just keep putting more out there. And hopefully our brands will. I mean, we've also noticed that our brands that we distribute have noticed what we're doing, and they're really starting to jump on board and want to be involved with what we're doing, especially on a field events level. Yeah. Like, for example, last year we did a ride where we our 2 guys from the creative department in Dallas, Jacob and Carter, I think I mentioned them earlier, video and our creative director, they trailered up to Denver to the Meta headquarters. Andrew Campbell from Meta, like, I flew down, and then the 4 of us rode to Sturgis and back. And so we wrote, it's kind of the story was about the experience, not so much about actually going to Sturgis. It was about the ride there and the ride back. And we tested products on the way, and we featured products. And so it was just a real fun way to showcase the brands that we carry and the lifestyle. And so that, like, some of the brands noticed that, are like, how can we get involved next year? We want to be able to kind of support what you guys are doing in the field. And so that's really starting to take off, and which is, it's fun when brands start to see what you're doing. And I feel like we're on the right track, because, when I see people like the Co-Moto group, Revzilla, and, they just acquired J&P Cycles and Cycle Gear, like, they're continuing to ramp up their content marketing. I just saw where they hired, I think, like, we'll forget it, Ari Henning. I think some of the guys that worked for Bonnier that were doing, that kind of video series, they just hired them on as more content creators. And so they're on the gas. I feel like they're one of those brands out there that is just, they're kind of setting the bar high. And it's not like it's a big secret, like all you have to do is look at go back to Red Bull and look at them, and that's kind of what you're emulating. Like Red Bull, there's the saying, Red Bull's a marketing company that happens to sell an energy drink.
Yeah.
And so
I think they really changed the game that some people purposely replicated. Some people, maybe you guys would be a good example. You didn't realize you were doing such a similar thing, but you have. I mean, you have to be. I mean, we're working on a series right now to where we're, obviously people hire us to get a positive ROI. So if you're going to spend 20 grand, they want to see 100 grand return from that. So we create content about how we are getting this client to ROI positive in 60 days or something like that. Because if you can follow along with content showing working with George or with Lacey or with Abby and seeing these people, you start to get attached to these characters, and then you know them, and you're going to buy from somebody you know, like, and trust. So even somebody as boring as a marketing company can follow that model. But when you've got something as sexy as the products and the gear that I want to wear, it makes it much easier to be able to create that content. And I think you guys have done just a phenomenal job. I mean, I'm super impressed with the blog. It's very much, I mean, it's like going to RacerX Online or any online content and media source. That's not what you guys do, but you've created that component within your company, and I think it's a big portion of what has kept your guys' brand as relevant as it is today, because it's not easy. I mean, it's a noisy world, and you guys have cut through that noise quite well, and I think it's a lot of what we talked about today.
I agree. And it's, for some on the surface, it can be a hard sell, because there's a lot within power sports, unfortunately I don't know a lot outside of it, like what the norm is, having been in power sports my whole life. But if you're not sell, product, here's why you should buy it. Like they think you're not necessarily marketing enough of the product. And so, but as we've seen with content marketing, it's just the opposite. It's creating that ride to Sturgis where it happens to have products we distribute in it, and there's some, they're included in there, but it's not a hard sell. It's people. We're trying to get people to buy into the lifestyle and what we stand for, as a distributor. And so that's been the approach. Like I said, luckily it's been really embraced by the upper management to take this approach, and so. Yeah, we're just going to keep charging, hopefully doing even more of it.
Where can folks see this content if they haven't had the opportunity to kind of venture over and see what you guys are doing? What are the best places online for us to follow what you guys are putting out?
Yeah, so if you just go to tucker.com or Google Tucker Powersports, you'll land on the Tucker website, and right at the top of the page is a blog, and everything's contained in there. And then, of course, our social media channels. You can just search for Tucker Powersports, and we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We still have Twitter, but we don't really do a whole lot on that. We just haven't really seen it to be that effective for us. Being that with the bandwidth we have, we just try and focus more on a few platforms instead of trying to be everywhere. Like from what I've learned, trying to be everywhere all the time is kind of almost an impossible task unless you have a huge team in place. Right. And so, we focus on, a few platforms, and we focus on quantity over quality. That's pretty much been our approach. Like we try and be meticulous and think about everything we post instead of just, spraying it out there. And so we're just, that's been our approach. And, hopefully it's going to keep growing.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I said, it's taken a couple of years to get to the point we're at. It's not easy. It's not an overnight experience, content marketing. So
that's right.
To build it up.
It is a long play for sure. I mean, it's not something that works tomorrow. It's something that it's what builds brands that last, 100-year brands. It's not something that's going to 10x your sales the next day. But if you get in and you're consistent with it, it definitely pays off. And I think you guys have seen more than enough to be able to double down on it. From, the ownership's perspective, that's why they're enabling you guys to do what you're doing. And I think it's a good model to look at if you're a smaller brand and you want to figure out what kind of moves can I do to really build a brand. Tucker's a great brand to look at, and I encourage people to go check you out and follow your content. And man, I'm appreciative that you joined us today, and it was awesome chatting with you. And I think it's something that it's going to be an episode that's valuable to a lot of people because the content creation it's not easy. So what you guys are doing is a really good role model to follow.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. If there's any last words, I would say I would tell dealers or smaller businesses or brands, like, don't be intimidated by it. Like, I know it seems like it is a lot of work, but on the same token, start out with posting something once a week or once a month, and that'll at least give you a start in that direction. And same thing with things like influencers. Don't be intimidated by that. I mean, on a small scale. If a dealership goes and approaches, a local motocross hero, I mean, that could go a long way for them if they have a decent following, just getting more of their name out in front of an audience. So that would be my biggest thing that I would recommend. It's just, don't be intimidated and get paralyzed by, being intimidated by the process, I guess.
Right.
And so, just jump in and do something, because it'll help you no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, it was a pleasure having you on, and I'll make sure we link up all of the social media channels, your blog, and everything like that in the show notes so people can find it. And I appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impakt Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpakt.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.